Welcome to episode 117 of the Family Answerman podcast. And today we're talking about depression in older adults, primarily those that are facing retirement from a biblical worldview. I'm your host, David Orgis, and I am here with Dr. Mark Crosby. He is a pastor, educator, mental health professional, and the resident expert here on the Family Answerman. The Family Answerman is not a therapy session. We cannot offer advice specific to your situation. So for in-depth answers to your questions, we definitely encourage you to seek professional counsel for your unique circumstances. Before we jump in today, if you would go ahead and hit the notification bell and subscribe to our YouTube channel, you will never miss an episode of the Family Answerman. And if you are listening on a podcast, if you would rate us and review the show on your favorite podcast app, that helps us out a lot, and so we really appreciate if you would do that for us. And as always, you can help grow the Family Answerman community by sharing this show just directly with your friends and your family so they can join you on this journey of building stronger, healthier, happier families. Well, Dr. Mark, good to be here with you today.
Yes.
We have a good question that I think is going to appeal to definitely a specific demographic of those that listen to the show, and something that hopefully we'll all face one day. The goal is that we would all retire.
Right.
So this is a great topic for us to look into today. There are some people, and the growing trend is that people are either not retiring or retiring later and later.
Right.
Do you think that retirement has a major impact on people and on families psychologically?
Well, absolutely, because again, you have to think about it. And by the way, not only is this program for those who are retiring or about to retire or maybe in retirement, but also those who are related to those individuals. Maybe your mom, maybe your dad, maybe your grandma, grandpa, whomever. The point simply is this, is that yes, I think people are putting off retirement to some degree, in some cases, primarily because, think about it, you had this job, this career maybe that you enjoyed for 25, 35, 45 years, and now you suddenly give it up. And for men, and for women too, but men especially, I will argue, this has been your identity. And the reason why I say that is because most women find their identity from their family,
right?
Their children, their spouse, their home, etc. I'm not saying men don't, but again, more women than men. And men more often will find their identity in their career. Not saying that women don't, but again, in more cases. So with that being said, when you are about to retire, you're about to give up your identity. And identity is very important. We see that all the way back into our teenage years where, again, we have this sense of who am I? And that question really starts coming up in our adolescent years. Where do I fit in? What am I good at? What do people know me for? Am I the athlete? Am I the mechanic? Am I the musical prodigy? Who am I? And so again, these areas of identity are very important to all of us. And so for men especially, your career, your vocation becomes your identity. People know you as the accountant or the veterinarian or the pastor or the physician or the attorney or the sales rep or whoever you may be. And so that's who you are because that's what you do. Now, when you leave that, the question falls back as it was when you were a teenager. Who am I now?
Who am I, right? Yeah.
Who am I? Because I'm not doing anything. So if I'm not doing anything per se, career-wise, am I a nobody now? And this is especially hard for the people who have been large and in charge. You were the CEO, you were the senior pastor, you were the executive director or whatever, and now you're not that person. And people still like you and they still respect you, but life goes on and life moves on. There's a new senior pastor, there's a new executive director, there's a new CEO, there's a new manager, there's a new sales rep, and life goes on, and there you are going, so now what do I do?
Yeah.
And so again, this creates a sense of depression because again, you have lost this sense of identity. So saying all that to say this, people stay longer. Maybe they stay longer than they should have. We see this in politics. Yeah. I'll just leave it there.
Yeah.
We see this in politics where people stay longer and what happens is that they're not as sharp. Their cognitive abilities are not as clear and as strong as they once were. They don't have the energy or the stamina they used to. And this is true of all of us. So this is not being critical. This is just a reality of life. And so there comes a time when, therefore, retirement needs to happen. You see this in athletics.
Yeah.
I heard recently that maybe Tom Brady was thinking about going back into playing football. I'm going, no, Tom, you're good. You've done your due. You've won your Super Bowls. You've got your rings. You've got your millions. Let someone else, have the spotlight. But anyway, with that being said, that's the reason. I think we love what we do. We do what we love. It's our identity. And to let that go is extremely difficult and in some cases depressing.
Yeah. And that's a great segue into today. And if you have a question and you want to get your question answered on the show, we would love to do that. The email address to submit those questions is familyanswerman@liveoak.church, familyanswerman@liveoak.church. And like I said, this is the goal of everyone, that we would all retire one day, and that we would still be able, or that we would be able to retire well and still be able to maintain our identity and what truly gives us value as people. So the question that came in today is, my husband just retired at age 62. So a concerned wife writing in, husband retired at age 62, and we thought that this would be a happy time. However, 2 months after retirement, he seems extremely depressed and he will not see a doctor. So what do you suggest, Family Answer Man?
So again, some points to ponder. Number one, depression is real. Yeah. As we said last week, for those who maybe heard our program last week, depression can happen to anyone at any time, at any stage of life, from childhood all the way to, the golden years, if you will. So depression is very real. And the reason why I say that is because there are still some people, maybe in this listening audience, that push back and say, well, depression is just in your head. Well, yeah, it's in your head.
It is, but that doesn't mean it's not real.
But it's very, very real. And it's something that, again, most everybody will experience at some point in time. Maybe it's the loss of a loved one, the loss of a job, or retirement, whatever it may be. But depression is very real. And you see it even throughout the Word of God. Key figures experience depression.
Right.
So again, depression is real and it can come to anyone at any time. So that's very important to note. It can come when there's a major change. Depression often happens when there's a major change in our life, sometimes a good change. And retirement, I will argue, can be one of those good changes in life.
Right.
You've worked hard, you've saved your money, you've done all the things that you're supposed to do. You've got the awards, you fulfilled your career, and now it's time to enjoy, your retirement years, as they say. And so we spend a lot of time financially preparing. We want to make sure we have enough money saved. We've invested well. We make sure that we have all of our insurances, all of our health care, lined up so that we can take care of those aches and pains as we get older. And so we think about the financial part. We want to make sure we're out of debt, and all those things are lined up. But what we forget to do is to recognize and realize that this change not only is going to impact us financially to some degree, but also it's going to impact us emotionally, relationally, and psychologically. And so again, depression comes when there is a major change in our life.
And being prepared for changes is one of the big keys to navigating that.
Well, exactly. I mean, when a child is born into a family, it's a major change.
Right.
But with it, for a lot of people, especially the mom, sometimes the dad, a depression can come with that.
Yeah.
Because now your life has changed. It is totally upside down, meaning there's now more responsibilities and you have more things to think about and more things to worry about in some cases and more things, to take care of. And now there's this little life that you have, that's completely, dependent upon you. So anytime there's a major change, when that little child graduates, moves out of the house, that too will be a major change. That too can create a depression. So the point is, anytime there's a major change, depression can occur. Here's the primary point based on this question. Men over 60 and women, but men in this case, in this question, who retire are extremely susceptible to depression. And that's our point. Men over 60 who retire are extremely susceptible to depression. And especially if they enjoyed their work, and especially if they found their work fulfilling. So if they enjoyed their work and they found it fulfilling and they enjoyed going, to the office or going, to wherever they were working, and managing and working and solving problems and creating and finding solutions and making the sales and all these things, and they found that fulfilling, winning the court case, taking care of the child, whatever it may be, if they found that fulfilling and now all of a sudden it's gone, that can create a sense of depression. Here's the point. If they don't have a plan to achieve or stay active or do something productive, if they have not thought about that, in other words, they just say on Friday, I'm retiring, on Monday, I have no work to go to, that's fine for a month or two, especially in this question.
Yeah.
I talk to a lot of people when I ask them about their retirement, they go, yeah, it's fine. I feel like I'm on an extended vacation. Mm-hmm. And for those first couple of months, that's what it feels like.
And that can be good.
Right. However, they do a little golfing, they go on a cruise, they go see the grandkids, they clean out that garage, whatever. But now a month or two has gone by, and now they wake up going, now what do I do?
Right.
And when that happens for men over 60 who are retired, depression can come in like a flood. Mm. And so, again, for those of you who are wondering what are some of the major or primary symptoms of a major depressive disorder, here they are again. We've said them many, many times before, but again, if you're just tuning in, we're talking about men over 60 who are facing retirement, who are facing depression.
And this is great to take notes if you are either newly retired or retiring soon.
Or if you have a mom or dad who is retiring.
Right.
Because you might want to be mindful of some of these symptoms. You might want to be mindful of some of these things. If mom or dad, your grandma or grandpa is just not themselves, here's some things to look for. Number one, again, depression occurs after you've been sad or down or lonely or hopeless feeling for more than 2 weeks. So depressive mood begins when you feel sad, empty, hopeless for more than 2 weeks, and it goes on every day. Mm. So again, feelings of hopeless, feelings of sadness, feelings of emptiness, almost every day beyond 2 weeks. Number two, you have a loss of interest in activities. Mm-hmm. Dad used to love to go golfing. Dad used to love to play pickleball or whatever. Dad used to love to go hunting. He used to love to go to the fishing camp, but he doesn't anymore. So there's a loss of interest in activities. You may say, "Hey, Dad, let's go watch the ball game. Let's go tailgating. For the game coming up." Oh, I'm not interested.
No, I don't really want to. I don't feel like it.
Yeah, and so that may happen on occasion and no big deal.
Right.
But when it's consistent, especially when Dad used to love. Going to ball games, tailgating, watching the game. Thirdly, when there's weight loss without trying, there's a loss of appetite. You're not interested in the food that you used to love. You don't eat as much. Thirdly, insomnia. When you have trouble sleeping, you just cannot get a good night's rest. You're up all night long. You wake up and you can't go back to sleep. Next, when there's a loss of energy, you just don't have the energy any longer. You just don't feel like doing anything. You just want to lay around. You just want to sit in your lazy boy and watch, old Westerns. These, again, there's nothing wrong with sitting in your lazy boy watching Westerns, but when that's all you do.
Right.
24/7, as they say, that's a problem. Mm-hmm. And so, again, there's this loss of energy, loss of weight, insomnia, loss of interest in activities. Next, when you're feeling guilty. You feel guilty. Maybe I should have been a better dad. Maybe I should have been a better husband. Maybe I should have been a better employee. Maybe I should have been a better boss. Maybe I should have done more with my work. Maybe I should have saved more money. Maybe I should have taken better care of my health. Maybe I should have. And so there's this coulda, woulda, shoulda that creates these feelings of guilt. And as long as you were working, you didn't think about that. As long as you were, engaged in doing things and achieving, accomplishing, making the sale, you didn't think about that. But now that you have time to think, now that you have time to reflect, now that you have time to ponder your life, as they say, you start feeling guilty because you start focusing on more of the negative than the positive. You start focusing on more of the things that you didn't do or didn't accomplish, or the people that you didn't help, or the people that maybe you hurt and didn't mean to. That becomes now the feelings of guilt begin to overwhelm you. Next, you can't concentrate. You can't remember where you put those keys. And even though that happens to all of us, this is an ongoing thing. You can't concentrate. You lose your train of thought very easily. You just can't focus on what it is you need to do. You go into the garage and you go, I know I was supposed to do something, but I can't remember what it was, And so again, this happens to all of us, but this is more frequent. It occurs more often. You can't concentrate about anything hardly like you used to. It's hard to sit down and read your Bible or read a book for any length of time. Your mind begins to wander in various directions. Next, and this is the very dangerous part, and that is suicidal thoughts. Suicidal thoughts. You begin having thoughts of, well, maybe I've done all I need to do. Maybe I need to check out. I don't have the friends I used to have. They either have passed away or they're still working, and I call them up and they're still got things they have to do. And I call them up and let's go fishing, and they, have to work this weekend, or they're doing a turnaround or whatever. And so you start thinking, maybe I don't belong anymore. Maybe I don't have, the connections I used to have. Maybe the world will be better off without me. I've done all I can do. It's time to just, end it.
There's no purpose.
Right.
So what's it worth?
So these suicidal thoughts, happen to the men over 60 who struggle in this area. Low self-esteem. Again, the loss of identity. I don't have anything to offer anymore. I don't have the friends I used to have. I don't have any worth. I don't. I used to be the person that everybody called on. Now no one calls on me.
Right.
And so that low self-esteem. And then last of all, if you're keeping count, addictions begin to occur. You begin to drink more. You begin to maybe dabble with prescription medication, make you feel better. And so addictions begin to happen. Maybe you start gambling, hoping that will, give you some sort of thrill, and it might for a moment or two, that dopamine rush. But these things become very destructive very quickly. So here's the point. If you got 5 out of those 10, then you can be basically diagnosed with a sense of depression. And some will even argue major depressive disorder. So that's very important to note.
So say somebody recognized, hey, I've got 5, 6, 7 of the things on this list.
Yeah.
I have felt this way for more than 2 weeks. Where do they go from here?
So if you're just tuning in, this wife writes in and says, her husband has these depressive symptoms, doesn't want to see a doctor. So what do we do?
Yeah.
So seeing your doctor is very important. Seeing your physician, seeing your psychiatrist, seeing your counselor, seeing your pastor, whomever it may be, is very important. But there's some men who won't do that. There's some men who just have so much ego, so much pride, or feel guilt and shame. They don't want it to get out. They've always been large and in charge. They've always been, the person that, was gung-ho and everybody turned to them. But now those days are done. And so the thought of telling their doctor I'm depressed sounds a little, wimpy to them or whatever. The thought of saying to their pastor, I don't have depression. I have depression may sound like I don't have faith.
Right.
And so all these things kind of come to their mind. And so the thought of seeking professional help is anathema to them. So if you're a spouse with a husband who won't see a doctor and who's struggling with some of these depressive symptoms, here's some things you can do. Here's some things that may be helpful to you that may help manage or even treat the depression. Once again, there's no one thing. It's usually a multitude of things. But number one, help them to walk with God. Now, what I mean by that is this. Let them hear you pray for them. Sit next to them, hold their hand, and pray for them. Let them hear you pray for them out loud. Read the Bible to them. Maybe, watch a YouTube, sermon or something that may speak into their heart, but help them to walk with God. Depression is something that, again, is very real and very severe. But with God, there's healing. With God, there's hope. But they have a hard time seeing that. So as a spouse, help them to walk with God. Number two, show the promises of God. In other words, remind them of what God has brought y'all through all these years, how God, showed up when maybe your child was sick, how God showed up, during that storm, how God showed up, when there's a crisis at work, when God showed up, when there was a financial concern that y'all had, how God, it's that footprints in the sands moment.
Yeah. The old poem that there were 2 sets of footprints, and when times got tough,
right,
the traveler he sees that there's 1 set of footprints and feels like God left him.
Yeah.
And then there's 2 sets, and the point of the poem is that's not when God left the traveler. It's when God picked the traveler up and carried them.
That's right.
Yeah.
So remind your spouse of that. And sometimes we forget of the things that God has done. So again, as the song says, be reminded of the goodness of God. Thirdly, Find some friends. So if you are, the spouse of a husband who's depressed and maybe because of retirement and all this, help him find some friends that will be supportive. Call that buddy that, he's always had, since high school or college or, that always went to work with or whatever, and invite them over. Invite them over for tea, invite them over for dinner, invite them over, for game night or whatever it may be. But just have some friends kind of show up and be supportive.
Well, I can imagine if somebody if they're feeling this way and they don't want to get out, and they don't want to get out into social settings, actually bringing a social setting to them and invading the house and putting life in the house probably has a lot of advantages.
Yeah, and just let them know, hey, look, our friends are coming over and they just want to hang out and have dinner
and cards.
Yeah, exactly. And so, but create that environment where, it's okay to tell the old stories and to laugh about the old times and, to tell that story that you'll never forget what happened in work and how this happened or that happened. But sometimes the spouse needs to create that moment. Now, again, just know that your husband may push back at first. But again, you want to create an atmosphere of laughter and of joy. Next, serotonin is crucial in the brain. And so again, as we said last week with childhood depression, get outside. Again, vitamin D is very important. If your spouse is deficient in vitamin D, get outside, get some sunshine, take some vitamin D supplements. Again, beware of alcohol. Alcohol reduces the serotonin in the brain, and again, that can be very detrimental to one's well-being and even enhance and exacerbate the depression. Make sure your spouse drinks lots of water. The older we get, the more water we need. And sometimes we are far more dehydrated after the age of 50 or 60 than we realize.
Now, I am not at that stage in life, but that's not an assumption that I would have made. The older you are, the more water you need.
Because again, the reason why we say that is because the thirst factor, if you will, is not as great, many will argue. We can be more like camels, it seems like, after 50 or 60. But the truth is, water is needed for our brain. Our brain is made up primarily of water. Our body's made up primarily of water. And, we're not, drinking the water like we used to as a kid. As a kid, remember, between classes, you went to the water fountain.
1, 2, 3, get behind me.
Yeah, exactly. Outdoors, you had that water hose back in the day. You were just, gushing water. When you were younger, you had your water bottle. But as you get older, you don't feel as thirsty as often. And what happens is that dehydration begins to kick in, and dehydration for an older person, I will argue, can be very detrimental to one's overall mental health and physical health. Be aware of a plant-based diet. It's okay to eat a little more salad. It's okay to have those fresh fruit. Oatmeal is good in building up serotonin. So maybe if you're not a big breakfast eater, but a little oatmeal each morning can be helpful in dealing with the depression. Physical movement outside, as we said last week, for children also is true of adults. It's okay to take walks with your spouse. It's okay to just go to the walking track. It's okay to play pickleball. It's okay to help your spouse with a garden. But physical movement outside, again, you're getting sunshine, you're getting fresh air, you're doing something active, you're getting the blood to flow. You're also accomplishing something. You're starting to feel a little bit better maybe as you walk, maybe losing a pound or two, maybe feeling a little bit better about spending time with your spouse, as you're walking and talking, So again, physical movement outside is very important. Reducing stress by being thankful for all things. The Word of God talks about that in Philippians 4:6.
Yeah.
How important it is that we are thankful. Again, as we said a couple of episodes ago, you get to choose what you focus on.
Yeah.
You can choose on what you don't have, or you can focus on what you do have. Those who focus on what they do have very often will be more thankful. Next, achieve something. Find something that either around your home or helping someone else, but help them achieve something. If a friend of yours is putting up a fence or whatever, help them put up the fence. If a friend of yours is, painting, their, living room, help them paint their living room. The point is, achieve something, that may be helpful with someone else. Not only that, as we said before, worship together, And as you worship together, make sure church becomes a part of your life as you reflect on the goodness of God. This really does reduce depression, and it slows down even and improves dementia. As you're worshiping, as you're reading the scriptures, as you are maybe even putting the scriptures to memory, is very, very important because it's activating the brain. It's activating your spirit and soul, if you will. Next, listen to music that you enjoy. If you're raised with a certain genre of music, listen to that music. Listen to it and sing along. Sing along and sing the words and sing out loud. It's okay if you're in your shower or in your truck or in your car or in your living room, the song comes on, to sing along with the song. It does something to you. It really does.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of times we think that singing is it's not a activity that men like to do publicly, right? A lot of times. But it does. It's psychologically that accesses a different portion of your brain that increases longevity.
Look, I had a guy tell me not that long ago. He said, my dad was a man's man. He was Marine. He was a part of the police force. He was part of the SWAT team. Nothing scared him. He could bite nails into. But he would come home. This is his memory as a child. He would come home and he'd put on ABBA and sing ABBA. In this high falsetto voice, and he's going, "Who is this guy?
Who is this guy?" That's awesome.
But it was his way of reducing stress.
Yeah,
it was his way of the stress of the day and dealing with the criminals of his community as a police officer. But that was just his way of doing it. So, real quickly, if you're just tuning in, here are some things you can do if you're going into retirement and how to prepare for retirement very quickly. Again, 10 basic things. So if you're just tuning in, how to reduce the depression by focusing on and planning for retirement. Number one, volunteer at church. Churches need volunteers. If you're retired, volunteer.
Yeah.
You can do all sorts of things. You can help with kids. You can help in the nursery. You can help clean up. You can help make food for those who have loved ones who have passed away. You can help clean the sanctuary. You can take out the garbage. Volunteer at church. Volunteer or join service community organizations. There's many organizations in the community that you can join that would, again, where you can volunteer and help make things better in your community. Thirdly, maybe create some sort of consulting business or online service, or maybe do something that maybe you did when you were a teenager, maybe help your grandson do, maybe some sort of lawn care. If your grandson's 16, hey, and you got a truck, hey, I'll drive you there. You mow the front yard, I'll do a little weed eating. Next, if you're just bored and you want something to do, find a part-time job that can keep you active in an area that you enjoy.
Yeah.
I've known a lot of teachers, for example, who do some tutoring. I know some teachers who have worked at bookstores. Part-time, they enjoy this. Yep. Speaking of tutoring, if you're retired, maybe you can be a substitute teacher.
Yeah.
Especially some of your smaller, more rural schools that don't have maybe the pool to draw from for substitute teachers. Maybe you can let them know, hey, I'm available. I can help out. Maybe learn another skill. Maybe get your CDL. Maybe get a CDL, drive the kids, have a bus ministry, whatever that may be. Drive the senior group, to the local restaurant, whatever that may be. Learning another skill, maybe learning another language. Now is a good time to learn Spanish, from what I understand.
Yeah.
Okay? So again, you might want to do that. Start maybe a Bible study in your home. Or if you're going, I don't know the Bible that much, well, maybe just provide your home as a place for a Bible study to occur. Maybe your wife can lead the Bible study. Maybe your friend can lead the Bible study, but you can have it at your home. And now you're entertaining, you're preparing, you're helping, you're providing. Next, if you're interested, get involved maybe in the local political scene. Maybe you should run for school board. Maybe you should run for parish council. Maybe you should run for city council. Maybe you should run for maybe an office that you've always thought would be encouraging and fun, and maybe serve in that capacity. Also, too, which we also kind of mentioned, there's a lot of small churches in your area that could use some help. That pastor could use someone maybe just to go on visitation with him. That pastor could use someone maybe just to help him, cut the grass, in the church grounds, whatever that may look like. But again, there's something you can do if serving God is your goal in these last years of retirement, if you will, or these golden years of life. But again, use those years to bring hope, to bring healing, to bring some help to those around you. And it will you will better face your depression, reduce it, and do something that maybe will bring some joy and happiness to your life.
Well, there you have it from the Family Answer Man. I want to thank you for joining us again. And as always, we hope that this episode has challenged you and inspired you to have a stronger, healthier, happier family.